Hey folks, how's it going? Jovan, Hutton, Pulitzer here. We're going to keep on talking about this coronavirus. This is a follow-up to the one I did last evening talking about just the coronavirus in general and how does it relate to the history of pandemics. I watched many of the questions that popped up overnight regarding the history of pandemics, and there was a tremendous amount of questions primarily about two things. It was, what is this flatten the curve business? How does that work? What are we supposed to do? How do we make it happen? And then there was a tremendous amount of questions about the stock market and the market, and hey, did people know this was going on, high net worth individuals, etc. And so I'm going to be sharing quite a few screen shares with you during this time. This one is going to be a little more in detail into the financial aspects of this and what can we expect and what's going on. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, hey, flattening this curve. You see it tickering at the bottom, flatten this curve. And what did the markets know when? Now, one thing I would like to ask you to do, would you please click share on your, right now, if you're watching me on Facebook or on YouTube, share it so your friends can see it. Let me share my screen with you, a few things that I want to show you. This is what it is. The whole topic here is flattening the curve. How in the hell do we flatten this curve? And what the curve is from the time of outbreak up until we reach this peak. Now, I want to let you know, if you're looking at the chart that I have on the screen at the moment, we're not to the top of this yellow peak as of yet. We're still climbing as a nation. I'll talk about that a little more in a minute. And we haven't basically come over the top of that curve to see where that wave tips over, starts to come back down. But basically what you're looking for is where the growth of infection and people hitting the capacity of the healthcare system, but you've got your protective layers underneath that you're keeping more people from infecting. You flattened it out so you do not overburden the healthcare, right? Healthcare of the organization. Some of y'all coming into this broadcast, I'm gonna share another one with you here. You're not able to see. It's basically driving me nuts. Some of you that are my normal people that participate with me in broadcast, unfortunately, here recently, a Facebook thing. I have no idea why, but it's a Facebook issue that's going on. But you're not able, when I see you pop up, usually I can see everybody pop up, right? I can see who you are, and you've popped up on my screen and I see your name. But in my normal public persona page as a public figure, you see me here, and this is where I can reach 25, 30,000 people at a time. It's not uncommon in that page when I post a video or share something on video there for it to reach 4, 5, 6 million people. but weirdly coincidental, as you see there, I've lost access to my main publishing page when we first started talking about this. And it doesn't matter what I do with Facebook. Facebook is not responding and turning it back on where I can reach more. So that's why you're seeing me in subpage here, like the groups, right? You're here, you're watching me talk about the different issues of what's going on with this coronavirus and what you can do. So what I'm asking you to do, please hit share. When you hit share and throw this link from this broadcast over to your friends, they're able to watch it too and find it. And I appreciate everyone you're doing here. I'm just trying to share some of the information that I know from being around this or involved in it, or decoding some of the stuff just so you understand what's being said to you, because sometimes the political speak gets all kind of gobbledygooked, and I want you to understand what's going on and how does it affect you. First, let me show you what I've been working on. I talked yesterday. I said that one of the things I've been doing is basically working with the government on this particular pandemic. One of the things I've been putting together is called Project Rapid. What that stands for is Remote Assessment Platform for Infection Detection. It's basically the way that we can test as a nation as fast as we can, as quick as we can, and make sure we can separate the infected from not infected and find the hot spots. This particular part of the program focuses on the 4 squeeze points, the 4 push focal points on this epidemic, and how to use that to our advantage to help reduce the impact on the United States of America. I can't share all of this with you. I'm going to share a few little points, and as we go forward in the next couple of days, I will share with you some of the stuff that the government's working through, that we're working through with the government. You know, my morning's been spent from everything from senator's office to the federal government to the state government. Everybody is piling on this, trying to figure it out. There are some phenomenal people, both at the private level and the state and the federal levels. People are working around the clock. People are not getting sleep. Some of these people you see on TV all the time, they look like hell. It's only because they're only sleeping a couple of hours at a time. But I promise you that the United States government, and you might be watching me from all over the world doing broadcasts like this, but the United States government is responding as fast as they can, considering what's going on. Now, first I want to set 3 premises with you that you need to understand anytime something like this hits a country, right? And somebody said, I object to being a Facebook user. I don't know what's going on. If you're in my normal broadcast where thousands of you join, it puts up your picture and puts up your name. I have no idea why it's not showing you by name. It's driving me nuts because I know you're there. I'd like to talk to you and address you by name. But yeah, you're just a generic Facebook user at the moment. I have no idea what is going on with it, but maybe the systems will get out. And also, I'm doing this in a lower bandwidth. This is only 480p, so if I look grainy, some tell me it makes me look better, but if I look grainy, that's what it is. I want to make sure you kind of get this unstuttered if we can. So, amidst this pandemic at the moment, there are 3 very distinct epidemics going on. This is different from what I shared with you the other night. But there are 3 epidemics hitting at the same exact time. Now, if you got a pen and paper, write this down because I think it's important you know it. And I'm going to ask an action of you, other than sharing this, I'm going to ask an action of you that you might want to reach out to your congressmen and women. Here's why. The first epidemic in America that's coinciding with the pandemic crisis that we're in is what I call a politics pandemic. Here is what I mean. I do not care what side of the line or the aisle you're on, but everybody must understand the nation must respond to this pandemic and must respond fast. And as you saw this afternoon, the additional funding was killed in the Senate. The reason it was killed in the Senate is when it came from the House to the Senate, instead of being stuff like masks and respirators and hospital beds and stuff for the National Guard and getting tests out to you and all the stuff that thousands of people just like me are working on, trying to help the government figure this out, and all of your government's working on, that quote unquote stimulus bill had a few things in it that have nothing to do with the pandemic. Number one, I don't think writing in billions of dollars for taxpayer funded abortions has anything to do with this pandemic right now. So why is it in there? The other side of it, you know, we're going to have to bail out some industries like the automobile industry or large companies, electricians, journeymen, you name it. There's going to need to be some bailouts. But in the bill that came over, said, okay, we'll give these bailouts, but we'll use Ford Motors as an example. But going forward, they have to agree to the terms of the new Green Deal. Remember, that was the $30 trillion Let's Go Green Deal. And so right now, political shenanigans are in. This should just be clean, dealing with the nation's economy, dealing with how do we respond to this? How do we get tests out? How do we keep people being infected? And you should not be Christmas treeing. It used to be called pork, but now that we have Muslim lawmakers, that's offensive. It's called Christmas treeing or ornamenting, throwing in their little special puppies that they want in there. And so do me a favor, maybe email your congressman and say, get your head in the freaking game and deal with COVID-19. And COVID-19 has nothing to do with abortion or the Green New Deal or anything like that. Please put politics aside and let's just deal with this crisis right now and stimulate this economy and get it going before it becomes the norm. That's what the problem is. The second thing that's going on, the epidemic, I said there was a politics epidemic. There is a political epidemic at the same time. That's a little bit different, but let me explain it to you. Basically, when I say a political epidemic, this is now out of the hands of our president and our vice president. And when I say that, they have enacted everything they can, from the Stafford Law to all this other stuff on. They have enacted everything that you can do. I've been in this medical world now for 8 years plus, and tests that would normally take 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years to get through the system. They're putting them through right now, trying to respond to this. However, there is a catch. And the catch is it has now become a competition between the 50 states, which means it's every governor for themselves, and it's creating some competition and driving things up. And therefore, how your state is going to react wherever you may be, and where I am at the moment, I hear that Tuesday we're going on official stay-in-place lockdown. Many of the states are going to that stay-in-place lockdown. But what is going on with your states is you only have one of 3 type of governors batting for you. You either have a governor that's petrified and frozen with fear and doing nothing, doesn't know what to do, and your state's not responding. That's not good. You have a governor that's focused on being proactive and getting testing. That's a great thing, right? Because you got to test people to find out where it is. You have to test people to get it pulled back in. You have to test people to start doing ringing, bullseyeing this, knowing what you're dealing with, which I'm going to show you. You're going to be interested in some stats I'm going to show you. Or you've got governors that are saying, well, we're going to wait for a cure before we do anything. Think about that. Wait for a cure. That I cannot fathom, right? A governor or somebody saying, well, we're going to wait till we have a cure. I think that's a little too late. It's a nice thought, but it doesn't have the timeline to do it. And I'm glad you asked, how do they test it specifically? I'm going to show you the test. So hang on, but I want to let you know. And so you either have one of 3 types of governors. Every one of you. The White House has pulled out all the stops. This president has come through for New York, for California. They're praising him. I thought I'd never see it, but it's true. So now it's up to your governors. Now it's up to your governors. So what you can do as a citizen of the United States, email your congressman, say, get off your ass and quit throwing shit in it. Let's get this approved for COVID, for what we have to respond now. And then the other side is push your governors. And your governors should be taking a testing approach. I'm going to show you what the World Health Organization says. I'm going to throw up a banner here. There was a question put to the head of the World Health Organization. And here's what it says. It says, what should a country's first priority be after lockdown? This is their answer. Test, 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 not test, 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 test. Test everyone, but test the suspects, test the suspects, test the suspects. Test. It is about testing. You need a way, if you think you've been exposed, right? If you're having the symptoms, to be able to stay at home and to test, not go technically into the healthcare system yet, because that's what crashes. Remember, 1/3 of the exposure in China was their healthcare workers. What we cannot have our health workers overburdened with their own infections. You know, in Washington State, one person infected 93 healthcare workers. That's part of this dangerous. And so you have to have access to a test that you can test at home. This is my personal belief, that you can test at home if you're feeling the symptoms or you're having the symptoms, which we'll go over towards the end of the broadcast. But if you think you're having these, you should have access to a test. That's what we're going to talk about. Let me share some more on my screen with you. That in these 3 pieces, in the last epidemic, by the way, the very last epidemic running concurrent right now in the United States is the epidemic of profiteering, right? The team I'm part of, we've been scrambling on this, let's just call it 2 weeks. Getting, here's our triage, and here's our triage for the state, here's our triage for the government, here's how we should do it. Here's what we can do. Here's how we can mitigate healthcare costs. Here's how we can mitigate people going into the ER and calling 911. In California, it's nuts right now. People are calling 911 on their neighbors for coughing. I understand the panic, but there's got to be another way. So we're working on the non-panic, get it to the people response and ease the burdens, because you can't have your lines blowing up with 911 calls and ambulances running off the place just because somebody feels bad. You got to make sure you're triaging it. But the last thing that's going on is, as we put out these reports where you've heard there's no test, there's not enough test, it's actually not true. And here's why I mean it's not true. If the government order came down today, we could ship right now about 5.6 million tests a day. Yes, 5.6 million tests a day. What's going on, so you have to understand where some of the limitations are, is the first response was to focus on these big machines that did test. And even though those machines are absolutely fantastic and it's a great test, the machines themselves can only test about 4,800 people in any one 24-hour period. And so it's the limitations between the norms and what's out there and what could be done and should be done. And that's where all these resources have to come to bear. But what's going on is, as we put out these reports and people find out that, you know, I've been dialoguing with China, I've been dialoguing with the United States, been dialoguing with people. As we send out, hey, we can get 1 million tests, will hit Chicago this day, and then there'll be this million come off this line this way, and then capacity between these 14 manufacturers can come up to 5.6 million a day, and here's how we crank it on. As we find, as we send these out to government and stuff, I suspect that people are sharing it amongst each other and to other people, and profiteering isms going on, meaning it makes all the way around for, hey, look what we're doing, and then all of a sudden some guy in East Jesus Junction, Utah goes, oh, I can get a hold of tests. And invariably it comes back around, right back through our same channels. And the very test that we quoted out to a government at X price, all of a sudden is 2X, or it's 3X, or it's 4X. And you got all these middlemen hopping in. Not that that's occurring because people aren't transacting on those, but what's going on is, for everything that's real, as the nation and people in private sector that can help respond to this, as we get these responses out to the state and the federal government, it goes back through another filter and comes back, and all these opportunistic people go, hey, I got a buddy who has a buddy who knows a buddy who knows this guy who has 1 million tests, I can get them quick. And by the time it gets up here, it's marked up 4 or 5X, and they go, well, I had coffee one day with a guy that worked out of the gym that knows a senator that has a sister that does whatever, and they route it back around to a state legislator or something like that, right? And all of a sudden you see our same stuff, right? our same stuff, right? I can see you, Jill. I got it. All right. If you follow the instructions, that's awesome. But if, right, the greed, you're right, Stuart, the greed will get you. And it's coming back around in this incredible nightmare that the government, where you got one legit offer, might get 90 bad offers on it, where all these whatever, and by the time it hits and goes through, it's so muddled and muck, it's slowing the response. But thankfully, the government knows that's going on, and evidently it's part of the quote unquote process, I guess, and they have to filter through it. So let's go on, and I'm going to show you exactly how and why this spread the way it did, right? And I'm going to, one comment, I can't see who did it, but the Facebook comment says, no, nobody is testing because of the real numbers. There's a very big part of me that believes you are correct. The real numbers may be frightening, but if you watched last night's broadcast about the history of pandemics, I said we've been here before, don't get alarmed by it. You're seeing this weird merging of technology, especially social media and alarmism. Think about this, folks. Our country over the last few years, one of the biggest moves that was pushed through social media was what? The banning of plastic straws. Now think about that for a moment. One kid's paper for school about we should ban plastic straws because it hurts the environment turned into somebody looking up plastic in the environment. And although six-pack carriers are far more dangerous, and plastic nets and all that is far more dangerous, right? And plastic straws are like 1/10,000th of 1%. Yes, 1/10,000th of 1%, right? But because social media took up the suck campaign, as I call it, to straws are bad, and everybody sent that damn tweet out, cities, states hopped on the bandwagon. Oh, we're here to the rescue. We'll save you. Boom, and bans are, you know, and straws are banned. I do not know what to tell you other than you're watching social media in many times wag the system. That's what's going on. So let's talk about non-conspiracy, okay? And I'll just address them right up front. Some people say that this was released by China. Some people say this was released by the United States. In fact, Iran, the government, our government has offered to help Iran. And Iran's and Iraq is a big place. There's many wonderful people, both Muslim and Christian populations, one of the oldest Christian populations in the world. And they're resisting help because they believe it's a ploy, and the United States military released it. But what are you watching in that country? You're watching a war-torn country whose hospitals are taxed because of continuous wars, who refuses help, right? And now has, according to cases reported and deaths reported, what looks like nearing a 20+% fatality rate. And it is all because of not following standards and not allowing help. And so we got a lot of cross-cultural clashing at the moment going on, and everybody's in these conspiracy theories. And there's other people that say, isn't this coincidental that our stock market was doing brilliant and it ran up during our current presidency, and jobs are at an all-time high in all categories, and they couldn't impeach them, and this and this and that. Here it is, and all that's wiped away, and all the jobs are wiped away, and all this other stuff. Yes, there's a lot of conspiracy theories floating out there, but I want to show you the facts, and you make up your own mind on what you decide to believe, but I'm going to show you the facts as they look, And just as I do with anything with history, I tried to present it very logically. And then as a treat, I'm going to show you Madonna, nude in a bathtub. She wants to put in her 2 cents. So I have Madonna's 2 cents as well, right? Anyway, so what I'm going to do is let me jump to my screen here, and I want to show you some of the things that we're going to start talking about. Everybody wanted to know, okay, if it started in China and it came out of China, why is it in Rome? Somebody must have gone there and planted it. Well, it's not as much as a mystery as you think. Just so you know, there is a Chinese Italy year of culture going on. It started when? Well, it started in January this year. Coincidence? How about almost 6 million Chinese flooding into Europe, specifically Rome, because they basically did this incredible event for the Chinese people to come visit Rome. Think about it. Okay, so right at the time when it may or may not have been a known as a big pandemic. And by the way, I'm going to get on, somebody said, how about the senators dumping stocks even before they diagnosed it? Hang tight, I'm going to get to that one. There was a big cultural exchange right at the beginning of the year. It actually started at the end of last year with a big influx, well-planned coordination of Chinese tourists coming to Rome specifically, and then headed up north. There was a lot of travel up northern Italy as a tourist spot during this exchange. So yes, no wonder Italy got infected the way it did, right? And then people are asking, okay, if Italy got infected, what is this that, you know, why is it that Italy looks to be so high and their fatality rate so high? Well, another interesting point. Several years ago, I covered a story that if you're willing to move to Italy and you were willing to have a child, that Italy would pay you $10,000 to move there and give you a plot of land. Well, this was, I don't know, that probably 5 or 6 years ago. You can Google it yourself. Is Italy was doing that because Italy knew it had a declining population. Under how Italy's run, not too many people are all excited about having kids, and therefore child rates went down. Also, as the world opened up and people were seeking new opportunities in the Americas and stuff, a lot of the young people left Italy coming to the Americas. And so Italy got caught in this interesting wave of the young moving off, combined with the young not having kids as much anymore, and their population became significantly older. In fact, it's them and Japan, 1 and 2 of the places getting hit heavy. Why? The age and their systems and immune systems naturally dwindling, being hammered the older they are and having pre-existing conditions. That is why you're seeing a significant amount of deaths in Italy. And Italy didn't do like we did here in the United States, is they didn't shut off. You know, one of the first things our government did, and the president did, was shut off coming from China very quickly. That's why we're way back here still on this climb and not being devastated like Italy, because a lot of it got mitigated. But as I showed you, Italy had a joint program with China, and they were promoting tourism. So naturally, Italy was not going to close its borders. And by not closing borders, bing, 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 Italy has gotten hammered. And it's a sad fact, but it's true. Age has a lot to do with it. Let me jump to the next screen here. This one, I'm going to tell you, will startle you. I'm going to explain to you what you're looking at real quick. This is the data plotted. This is called a heat map, where you see concentrations of people. I plotted the data. This is I found a data plot of tourism based on anchoring tourist photos in like maps like Google Earth or whatever. So you can look at the concentration of tourists going bing, 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 I was here, and it's called a heat map. Take a look at this. So this is the heat map. If you were to go back and look at tourists and the tourism trade, where did people go the most and where did they stand around the most with all kinds of other people, right? With all kinds of other people. Take a good look at that map because I'm going to play it back to you in a minute here. I want you to look at where it is and understand the yellow. The yellow pieces are the real high concentration, super concentrated tourism. People from foreign countries, foreign states coming in to visit there. Take a look at that. Okay, now as we go forward, I'm gonna change this heat map on you for a minute, and I'm gonna play it back to you this way because I think you need to look at it this way to let it anchor in your head. One, because of our visual, but I want to show you exactly where these are, right, and what's going on. Okay, and so now let's take a look at where were these cities? What were these cities that all these tourists during this short amount of time, where were they going? Share my screen here and look at it this way. See if this rings any bells. There you go. You are basically looking at those hot spots based on concentration, right? Rome, Barcelona, Paris, New York, Istanbul. You can see these high concentration areas of people visiting. Now look at Rome and you see the little hot spots above it. That's northern Italy. You're looking at super high concentration of tourism travel there. Okay, very important. The tourism travel there. And so we're going to go to my next map here. Now what I'm going to do for you is I think it's important that you, for yourself, find the connective tissue. You see if from stats and facts and information, if you can understand how this spread its tentacles, right? How did it get into the general population? How did it occur? And why are we seeing the spread that we're seeing at this time? So I'm going to show you this map. You might or might not have seen this one. Okay. There you go. That is the current. I don't know how current, maybe off a few days. Actually, I think it may be off like 4 or 5 days. This is, and the numbers have changed significantly, by the way. But this is the coronavirus cases in the U.S. By county, okay? And so you can kind of take a look at this map here. And I mean, it's obvious when you look at this map, you understand what you're looking at. You're looking at Seattle in the top left, right? You're looking at Los Angeles, middle belt of the U.S., Los Angeles, San Francisco, right? You're looking right there. You're looking over at New York. You're looking down at Florida and stuff. So this is the current, the most current. It will change. You're going to find these dials will radiate out a little bit, but this is where it's taken hold, meaning where we have positive rates of infection, okay, at this time. But it doesn't stop there. Let me change the map for you. And now what I'm going to do is that was the coronavirus known to exist in the United States, okay, right now. And now I'm going to show you, we're going to take a look at our nation, because of course, you know, I'm broadcasting from the United States of America. I want to show you our nation, just kind of like I showed you Europe and the world. I want to show you it from a tourism standpoint. Ready? Okay, so this is the United States based on heat mapping of the concentration of the tourism that goes on in the United States. I know you see it, right? It's not that hard to look at this, and I'm doing my best weatherman here. It's opposite, right? But it's not too hard to look at these hot spots. and go, wait a minute, those hot spots seem to exactly occur. So wait a minute, if China got it, and then China had this big tourism push, and they got to Italy, which is being devastated. And then we have it here in the United States, and here is where the virus is. And oh man, if we look at our tourism map, look at that. Well, I went one step further. Let me put them together for you. I actually merged the maps. By the way, folks, please share this on your wall, right? I don't know why Facebook has me in Facebook jail where I don't know, where I can't reach 20, 30,000 people at a time, where my videos can do 4 or 5 million views or more. I have no idea. That's why you see me doing this here in a group, right? Because they've kind of got me banned in the other ones. Share this, share this, share this, share this. People need to get this information and understand it. Anyway, I'm going to give you another screen here. What you're going to see is you're going to see the coronavirus known cases mapped 100% based on our tourism. The maps aren't 100% identical because one of them's flattened the top of the United States and one of them's geographically correct like this, but I gave them the best approximation they can. So I want you to look at how the merging of tours, right? Tourist hotspots, where the people come in from other countries and visit our tourist attractions, where we go to see our own tourist attractions. And I want you to see where all these international people come in, right? Combined with where the hotspots of the current pandemic are in the United States. It's pretty interesting. The twist you see in it, look at Colorado right in the center. Those little circles would be in the blue, but if you look at the map, one map behind, the white map behind has a straight line across the top, and the other map below, where I've merged them, has the bottom lines, right? The curved part lines, but they all basically match up identically, and that's incredibly. You want to call it coincidental, you want to call it fact, reality, here it goes. I mean, you can take a look. They literally lay over each other. So the reason I show you this is if you will just suspend all of the conspiracy theories for a moment, because conspiracy theories can get out of control, right? I want to just ask you for a moment, just possibly accept what the data is showing, that it really was something that got out of control, may or may not have been reported or handled right because of poor handling in a communist country, keeping it on the hush-hush. It kind of got out the door, and as it got out the door, right, two things took on. It got out the door through airports, it got out the door through the cruise industry, and those people on those ships coming to our country and going to our tourist places seeded it, went right back out, and here we are. It is the phenomenon of a modern world because we have no boundaries anymore. Now, there are alarming things that you need to consider. Is one of the things you need to consider. It was only 4.5 years ago where a new candidate was saying, we got to rely on America. We have to manufacture in America. It's dangerous if we don't. We got to basically control our own fuel destiny. We can't rely on other countries. We got to basically keep our borders safe and have people not coming in. I want to give you one thing. This is not a political statement, but when you have 90,000 people at the border wanting to come into our country illegally, this means they're not going through the process. That is basically illegal. Don't freak out about it, but it's just a true fact. You can imagine if you got 90,000 people at the border at any one time, and just a few years ago, you had 250,000 people or more at the border at any one time. Remember, they're huddled together. It only takes a handful to infect the whole people. And when they come across into our borders with the current situation, and they are basically dispersed to 420 detainment centers, or before that, they're just given a bus ticket and shipped to all these major hubs like Chicago and Denver and New York and et cetera across the country. It kind of creates a, what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of creates a self-fulfilling prophecy of how things like these can spread, and why you want to try to be as much self-sufficient, contained, and manage your country the best you can. And this is a prime example right here. This is a prime example of how something that you don't want in your country, mainly a pandemic that can kill your elderly, can be troublesome. Let's move on. I want to show you, not that she matters, because she doesn't, but I want to, I've turned off the sound, but we all do get to look at Madonna in a bathtub. And I know that's in particular any great thing, okay? But I'm trying to figure my comments here. If I can do it, I can't get down to my new comments. Anyway, Madonna made just an odd statement that seems to be going nuts on viral on Twitter. Take a look at this, and I'm just going to show you in text form. And then next, we're going to get to the stocks and how this affects stocks. But here's the wonderful Madonna in her bathtub. Evidently, she tweeted from her bathtub today as she was taking a bath. And she gave her celebrity sense, 2 cents as to this. And here's what she said, which people are actually backlashing about. She said the coronavirus has angered some fans in her latest tweet. And here's what she said, which is kind of weird, but she did it. She said the coronavirus is the great equalizer. Now, she said this in a video from her bathtub where she basically did this little chime in. It says it doesn't care about how rich you are, how famous you are, how funny you are, how smart you are, where you live, or how old you are. It's the great equalizer. And what's terrible about it is what's great about it. What's terrible about it is it's made us all equal in many ways. And what's wonderful about it is it made us all equal in many ways. Fans actually commented on this. Is, you're trying to be relevant for the time, and rightly so. People say people can die from the same diseases, but the poor suffer the most, which is true. So don't romanticize this, right? And they're talking about, COVID testing. Rich and famous seem to be getting tested without any issues. And yes, you're correct. That is a function of money at that standpoint. Is, if you got a top doctor, when it first came out, not now, because everybody's trying to get tested. And that's what I'm going to cover next. I'm going to show you what these tests look like. And we're going to go into some more details of how to do this. So let me get rid of Madonna in the bathtub here, which wasn't very exciting. And I want to show you how we need to frame this when it comes to the financial markets, because there is a framing you need to understand in the financial markets, okay? And what that is you're looking at this particular chart. This is January 1st, 2017 to basically today. And you're looking at the stock market. Now, the little red arrow in the bottom left corner, because this 2017, you got to go way back to where we were at like 9/11 or even further, where the market wasn't anywhere near there, maybe 10 or 12. That's where it was hovering. So you see the market basically already has its own ups and downs for various reasons. Now, the reason I show you this, look to the far right, yeah, we've taken a hit in the stock market. But I want you to just understand that's the natures of markets, that's the nature of trade, that's the nature of globalism, and that's the nature of the media and social media's impact on how certain things affect the market. And so I'm going to, as I show you these numbers, I'm going to put them in a historic time capsule for you, because I want you to understand, just like I said for the history of pandemics, we have been here before. We've been here before. And I'm trying to offer you all the comfort I can offer you to understand we've been here before. We're in an age of social media, so you know a lot more. We're engaging in it right now. But instead of being alarmist, I want to arm you with facts that might help you see clearly through what we're dealing with and find a better way to deal with it than just thinking chicken little, the sky's falling. And I want to show you historically, I showed you last night, there are many epidemics and pandemics that killed 450,000 people in the not too distant past, and you didn't even know the name of them. And it's because social media hadn't caught up yet, and the news didn't find it sexy, right? And in many ways, the news finds this sexy because they use it to bash an administration as opposed to thinking about what's good for the people. So let's take a look at some of these numbers, shall we? But first, I want to show you that this is key. What I've been working on for these last few weeks, a whole team of us has been working on how can an American test at home, right? So there are, remember, you're watching the evolutionary cycle of testing. Started out, you could get your results in 10 days, then 9 days, then 7 days, then 1 week, and then it went to 3 days, then 2 days, and then 24 hours. And then it went, because of overload, back to 48 hours. Now it's down to maybe 45 minutes. Still will test where you go. They'll extract your blood, give it to you in a lab and process the system. But a lot of that system is hard, okay, are hard to process a lot of tests. Even the best machine at the moment, which is absolutely phenomenal, can only test about 4,800 tests in any one 24-hour period. And so all systems, local, state, federal, are all trying to figure out what's the best way to deal with this, what's the best way to get people information, and what should be done if you feel you have the symptoms. Remember, I shared with you a few days ago, one of my companies helped co-founded that, hey, you can go and do a COVID screening right now and talk to a telemedicine provider, and that, you know, that session's free. But we're still trying to rapidly get these things out. So I want to show you what this test is and can be at the home level. This is what you can do at home, provided that the government approvals are done, the city, state, local approvals are done. But here is where all this triage, which is getting quicker, and triage just means intervention, is getting pushed down fast and rapidly approving things. And one of the ways to do this is to be able to do it on the spot and instantly. So let me show you this. I'm going to share my screen. This is the test we've been scrambling for on manufacturing. There is no sound. I'm just going to share it with you as we do it. But here's how it works. Basically, you get a kit. You got a little finger prick. That's kind of like if you're diabetic, right? Get a blood sample, just a little bitty prick in your finger. You squeeze it. You take a little pipette. That pipette you drop into this testing cassette that would be delivered to you. And then basically you take reagents, right? It's a reagent. That's a buffer. That's what makes the chemical reaction work. Think of it kind of like a pregnancy test. Okay, but basically what happens is we're able to test you literally in minutes and get one of the important things of these systems is you can get people, airports, borders, whatever, this particular test quickly. You can actually do it in minutes. I gave you time to look at it there and read it, and you can do it quickly in minutes and get people results. So think of this as a very fast triage system, but that's not it, because frankly, I would basically say you don't want to be kind of left to your own devices, do you, right? You don't want to just be sitting there going, oh my God, you know, I've been exposed to COVID-19, I have it, or whatever the case may be. Okay, so you want to be able to test fast. So I want to show you how we've amped it up to the next level. Is now imagine, what is one thing that all of us have in common? This little device right here, right? And so this is the computer in your pocket. So where all of this is going, and if y'all have been following my work over the last 4 years, this is what we've been working on in the healthcare areas, to be able to allow you to do a lot of the tests that you would normally go to the doctor for, to do at your home. So you don't have to take your kid out of bed that wakes up at 2 o'clock in the morning freaking out because they have a strep or whatever, you take them to a care now, you take them to an emergency room, but what are you doing? You're exposing them to additional pathogens. And so what we've been training the systems to do is to do these tests, but to do them at home. And so now imagine that kit I just showed you that you could run, go pick it up absolutely free, or it's mailed to you, or the postman gives it to you, whatever iteration it is, and you've got your phone. Now, basically, you'll follow that procedure, and you'll have a little bitty quick app on your phone. And now imagine all you'll do is tap the app icon, follow the instructions to tell you how to do the test, and you just hover the app over the test. Let me show you how this works. I think it's very interesting. I think you'll find it interesting too. This is basically how fast we went with our computer vision. So first thing I want to point out is, although this video is 16 seconds, I want you to watch. Think of a fighter pilot. Think of your best fighter pilot movie, and in their helmet, their little lasers see the rockets and all the stuff, and they see where the peoples are, and they just bing, 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 lock onto them. So what we've done is we've taken these tests where that you can do yourself, but you just don't know how to analyze them. And we've taught your phone to do it. Ready? Take a look at this and watch how quick you just kind of get in the general area of the test. Just get in the general area of the test and watch how quick we grab it. Ready? Here we go. Boom. Do you see it? Look, there it goes. It caught it. Bang. And now it's off. That's off and up to the system. And so what I want you to understand there is, now imagine you have this test. You can take it, you can swab your mouth, you can swab your throat or your nose, or you can take this little bitty blood drop. You know how to do it. Now you're in the safety of your home, you've got your test, you got a quick app, you do that. And that little pump you saw, that little turning dial you saw, all of a sudden, real quick, boom, it's taking that test and it's sending it up to our providers instantly, right? And all of a sudden, boom, here's what happens. The doctor pops up on the line. You want to see that again? Let's go back to that. Let's see, can I go back to it? Let me see if I can punch it for you. Watch this again. So you knew how the test was. You pricked your finger, right? Let me make sure you're seeing this. Okay, you got your finger pricked. Then literally all you do is, after you've sat there, the test has to set a few minutes for the chemicals to work. You don't have to think about the doctor. You don't have to think about the diagnosis. You don't have to think about your insurance or any of that. You just want to see a doctor. You want to see a doctor right then. You want them to help you. Basically, you take your phone, you hover it over the test. There it is. Boom. It sees the test. It lines up, takes it, throws that right up to the doctors. And basically, in very, very short order, literally under a minute, boom, the doctor pops up on your screen and you begin to dialogue. The doctor sees the test, knows what's going on, machine vision, artificial intelligence, computer vision, machine learning, all working together. So it's like a 6-point redundant system, right? And you're right, it's kind of like the tricorder on Star Trek. Boom, it just grabs it, use your phone, and up pops the doctor. The doctor can talk you through it. If you need a prescription or medication, it can be written right then, right? It can be authorized. You can pick it up at your store. It can also be hot-shotted to your home within, say, 30 minutes to an hour. You never have to leave your home. And so part of one of the things we're really working on is we are working on getting this system to you with that test, because the goal is to keep you at home. Why would you want to go out and infect the medical community? Or when you know people are getting tested because they have the symptoms, you think you have symptoms, you don't really have it, but you're in close proximity of people that do, you have a better chance of getting it. So this is about mitigation of risk, and this is what we've been working on to get to you. It's still in process. It has been night and day work. That's part of what you saw, rapid program. That's why you have rapid response. But this is what connects everything in the world. You already know how to use it. Hover over the test, boom, you're gone. Let's look at some of the market things. Now I want to answer your questions regarding the market. Is this normal? Why did senators sell their stock? How did these guys know this financial crisis was coming and big money got out and all of us lost our money or whatever. Let me just put the markets into perspective for you. You've basically seen the response system. You've seen a logical way that we know how this spread across the world. You've seen all the testing, the wonderful, great work that the president and the states are doing. And now I've kind of let you look behind the curtains and see where this can go, speeding it up on this curve so we can get tested more. And I want to let you know right now. So we're sitting here on a Monday. It's going to get worse. It's not that I'm the bearer of bad news. I am the bearer of facts. We're still doing this. We don't know where that curve comes. And when that curve comes, crash comes into our hospital system. When you think about a nation of 333 million people, and you think about a state having 10,000 beds for the bigger ones, that's not really many, is it? When you think about it, it's very hard. And if you take such little hospital beds and so limited emergency care, and ICU is such a small fraction of the overall hospital beds, you understand why we have to get to the home or better responses, better required mass, so we can push this through. And that is what has to happen. This is going to get worse. And I don't want to, and I'm not saying that from a wackadoodle conspiracy theory. Just please, it's going to get worse, right? As you test, you find out you have more, and the people that had it that were compromised, you're going to start see increased deaths. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Hopefully, it's not in your family. Social distance, stay there, do what you're supposed to, right? You'll be fine. I showed you last night. The world's been through this before. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch that. But you're going to start seeing the death rate go up. It is the natural course that this takes. But let me show you how things like this affect the markets. And maybe I can ease your mind about the markets and what it really means and your 401ks and everything else going along. If any of you know my, and you're right, it's not alarmist. I'm just showing you the history. For those of you asked that how can you get the test, you can go right now to mdbox.com/coronavirus, mdbox.com/coronavirus. And if you're not in our system, you can talk to a medical provider right away and get a free session if you think you have the symptoms. The test that you saw, we're diligently working on. There are literally millions ready to deploy, but the government has to waive the waiver to bring them into the country and distribute. So all these old rules about how they're set up has to be signed off on, and the government has to believe you can prick your own finger without a medical professional involved. I think, faced with a crisis like this, aren't you willing to prick your own finger? I would be, right? And so once we get through a lot of the old thinking and idiosyncrasies, we may be able literally to release millions and millions and millions of these tests in the system and then help the system deal with it, but that's still being worked on. Let's go. I want to show you the markets because this is where people worry about the financials. I want to show you how the markets react. If any of you know me, you know that when 9/11 happened, if you look at my worth on paper, I lost $800 million on 9/11, right? And it happens. It happens. And let me answer a question real quick. I'm going to cancel this. And Jill, you asked an interesting question. Jill says, are they made in China? Yes, Jill, they're made in China. As is the vast majority of our testing apparatus in the United States. The pregnancy test you buy in the store, the UTI test you buy in the store, the flu test, the strep test, all these other little tests that the Dr. Schwabs and stuff, predominantly almost all of them are made in China. How freaking ironic is that? But here's what's important. That little bitty test you saw, for China to get a hold of their rise and to get their line flattened, they use that very test on their population to head it off, circle them in, and get it under control. That's why we want to bring it here. You know, it says, one of the questions, I don't really need to be any more in the database. I understand the symptoms. I'm just talking about the basic tests they were taking for drive up. Why can't we go to the hospital and get it? You're right. Here's why you can't go to the hospital and get it. Because the particular test right now that they call rapid is a specialized machine that they're trying to get in to the system. So the chances of the hospital having that exact machine right now are not great. And a lot of these hospitals only have smaller labs, not bigger labs. Our lab systems are disconnected from our hospital systems. Right now, our lab systems are overloaded. They're totally overloaded. States are fighting for alcohol swabs and nasal swabs and reagents and this chemical because it's all been fractured out there, which I'm going to explain in a minute how this happens. So it's not that you can't just walk in. Somebody's got to deal with you at the hospital. If you have the systems, you walk in the hospital, you're infecting the hospital. They're trying to keep the infected away from the hospitals in a controlled environment. So you have to understand. You have to understand. It's a really concerning problem. Anyway, let me show you the markets. Let's just go to the markets real quick, and I'll try to answer your questions toward the end here. This is what happened after 9/11. I got caught up in this myself, lost a tremendous amount of wealth. But of course, here's 9/11. Here's where the Dow was at the time, right? We were all excited back then. I was about to do my public offering for my company, going to be the next newly minted internet unicorn billionaire, and boom, here comes the crash, right? And back then we were jumping up and down about breaking 12,000. So when 9/11 happened, that was it. So you're looking at 9/11. This is basically how the market just went, right? You're looking at hours of response here to the market of 9/11. So historically, markets crash when it happens. But how does this look over time? How does it compare? You know, that was horrible. That only basically affected technically America, right? We had our towers obliterated. We had the Pentagon attacked. But what does it look like if you're dealing in the pandemic space? Is this unique? Is it normal for the markets to take this big of a hammering? Well, let's look at it on a market by market basis, and let's see what we've got. Take a look here. Here is the mapping from 1970 to now of what's called the MSCI World Index. Now, the MSCI World Index is just a representation of both large and mid-cap companies over 23 developed market countries, and they're made up of about 1,646 constituents, and the index covers basically a look at the world. Now, what you're looking at is you're looking at how did markets respond at any point in time when an epidemic, a world epidemic or pandemic hit the market. Now, you can look at all of them. Look at HIV and AIDS in 1991. You're looking at the demonic plague, what we talked about out in California, that hit very brief order. But look at SARS, right? Boom, avian flu hit, market took a tank, then it climbed back again. Then we had the swine flu, that was 2003. Then in 2009, H1N1 hit us, boom, another one. Then we had a cholera outbreak, boom, it took another hit. Then we had Ebola and MERS and measles back to back, boom. Then we had Zika, right? Zika seemed to take off. This is how the market reacts. So in this one snapshot, okay, in this one snapshot of 50 years, I want you only want to take one thing from it. You're only looking at the market over 50 years as laid over epidemics. What this should tell you is basically it's natural, it happens, and we always rebound. Did you get that? It's natural, it happens, and we always rebound. I want to say that again. It's natural, it happens, and we always rebound. Let's take a look at, now, why is this going on that seems so hard? Okay, so what has happened since those 1970s to now is China is the big manufacturer of all our stuff. We, between labor unions and Congress and all these other laws and environmental laws and, oh, drilling is bad for oil, do it in all these countries. What we did is we took all these little bitty pieces of what makes America work and we put them in other countries, right? And every time we took these pieces and says, okay, hey, let's make oil be decided by 21 countries that hate our freaking guts and would blow us off the planet, but let them decide what oil prices should be, otherwise known as OPEC. We'll just get it from there, and we stuck it over there, right? And then, oh, well, you know, we need cheap things, and labor unions and price goes up, and all these taxes go up, and companies say, we can't operate that way. We've got to get these costs down. So how do they get the cost? Hey, stick them over into a country here that's willing to do it for less. So what we did is we took a lot of our independence and our jobs with them, right? And we stuck them in other countries. Well, you are watching the effect of it. Now, you got told 4 years ago that nationalism was bad, meaning worrying about your country. It's not a new thing, folks. People, the market, educated people in the financial market saw that this was coming, saw that we are vulnerable as the greatest nation on the planet. We're vulnerable because very critical things that we should control, we don't control, like our own fuel and economy and like our medicines that you're learning now. So here is what caused it. It was a philosophy that started in the 70s. You may have heard it. Today, here's what the companies are teaching. It's called lean manufacturing, okay? And it basically means you got to get up productivity, you've got to get up quality, but you have to decrease cost at the same time. That is what equals profitability. Ready? Productivity up, quality up, cost down. That is what equals productivity. Totally logical, right? And that is what came from what was called just-in-time manufacturing. I don't know if you remember when Michael Dell brought Dell computers to the world, but how Dell wasn't a manufacturer at the time. It just bought parts. But what Dell did is Dell would buy only enough parts that as orders came in, Michael Dell and company would put together the computer, which a lot of us didn't know how to do then, and send it to you. That was called just-in-time manufacturing, just-in-time manufacturing. And so let me share with you what that looks like, because this is part of the process. This is called just-in-case versus just-in-time. Now, what's going on right now is we are caught between just-in-time, which is the right, means it pulls from the system. As we moved in the 1970s to just-in-time manufacturing, or what's now known as lean manufacturing, we basically said we got to stop making a lot of stuff, because if it's just sitting there, we're not making money, it's costing us money. So all of manufacturing in the United States flexed. And they flexed it, basically said, what you see on the right is we're just going to make and store only what we just need for a very short period of time. Because if it's sitting there, the asset is losing us money because we're paying warehouse space and we're paying inventory and we're paying insurance and all this stuff. And so basically we want to make it, and then we want it to be just actual consumption, right? So we're going to make it in small lots. We're going to have very low inventories. That will reduce waste, right? And it's better communication. Boom, that's just in time. But look at the left. The left, and this is where we're trapped. When it comes to medicines and it comes to what we're dealing with right now, we would have rather had the old system, which means estimate what you can need in a worst case and store as much as you can. We don't have this in medicines. We don't have it in Tylenols. We don't even have it in our grocery chains. There's about 15-day road trucking supply floating in the country. But the old way of doing it, which was store as much as we can, was based on take a guess of what you can eat at its maximum, try to anticipate the usage, manufacture in very large lots, carry high inventories. Now, they said it was more waste, which is true. If you're dealing with a sensitive product that has a time window that it can spoil, yes, you could overdo it and you could lose some product due to waste. And they call it poor communication. I don't really know why that's stuck in there, but they're basically saying, well, you're not like really talking on the profitable terms. And so what you're seeing right now is not as much as the markets crashing. I can't see who said this, but it said global entanglement. Monica, if you're talking about the tests, are they prepared to make them? There's 6 million waiting to be approved to bring bought in the country. And yes, offshore, it has hurt us. It has hurt us. We don't control our own destiny. Now, currently in this administration, we've got our oil, it's our own, which is the cheapest. And that's why Saudi and Russia were battling 2 weeks ago over oil. And you saw the oil bottom out. That was Saudi and Russians battle over it. We have our own supply. But sometimes there's a time. And this is a prime example of why you need borders that are secure. You need to be able to manufacture what you need for your country first. You need to be able to take care of your people. You need to be able to make sure your people are well. You need to be able to make sure your people can survive. We've learned a hard lesson that 4.5 years ago, people were called mad people for saying, close the borders, do it right, do it legal, have screening. We got to become more independent. We're shipping this stuff out all over the world. It's going to hurt us. Well, here we are hurting us. Now, people ask, well, how did all these rich people know it was coming? Because they've kind of heard on TV. TV's about sensationalism, not facts, many times, right? They sensationalize what's up. So I want to dispel some of this market bailing stuff that they knew it was planted, here it is, and they took their money out to make everybody else hurt. I want to show you the real story about when the market started moving, which is something I keep close attention to. Here's the first thing that started happening about 1.5 years ago. And so I want you to understand it in the stream of this coronavirus, okay? Now, you may have never heard the acronym UHNW. UHNW. That stands for ultra high net worth individuals. And then there is HNW, high net worth individuals. High net worth individuals are the millionaires in the system. Ultra high net worth individuals are the billionaires plus. The ultra high net worth individuals, if you watch this chart here of the markets up and down, okay, here is when coronavirus started right here, okay, and here is kind of where the emergency was declared in January. People are saying, oh, the rich people did this, they moved their money, they knew it was coming and they bailed out. Well, way back here on the line, a full year before, family offices, because they felt the markets were strong, because they felt the economy was rocking and rolling and thriving with this presidency, they said, we're going to move out of the safer stuff and we're going to want to get to the more liquid things that we need to get to. So that started way back at the beginning of the administration, because they inherently knew as soon as the new administration came in that the stocks would go up through the roof. And so they started working for liquidity, getting liquidity and stuff so they could take bigger risk. And here's why, you know, venture capitalists over here, you hear the term venture capitalists all the time, funding these companies. They were going, family offices of ultra high net worth individuals were going, well, why am I really paying these people to manage my money when I have people that manage my money already and I don't need them? And so they've made a move to consolidate, to get their money back within their control versus within all these middlemen that are all just taking fees and going, hell, if I'm paying my own family office to do it, we're educated enough now we can do it. So there was a move to liquidity already. So there was no subtle secret move of ultra high net worth individuals trying to move their monies out of the market. It was something literally that was naturally occurring 2+ years before and had been on the horizon. This was just kind of a perfect storm. It didn't help, and it doesn't help, that our media has been relentless trying to convince you that America sucks and America is bad and our administration is bad, right? It doesn't help that those networks go global and influence how people think about the country. That didn't help at all. And so what it did is it created a really unnatural alarm, right? If everybody was freaking out about America and everybody was freaking out about this presidency and all the crap or whatever, no wonder people are panicking. But then go back right now. Look, we can't get this $1.6 trillion approval done because the Christmas ornaments on the package are taxpayers' money must now pay for abortions. And yeah, we can bail out the big companies, but they have to automatically agree in the future they're going to embrace the Green New Deal, which we already know costs trillions and will hurt our economy. You got to look at what's being stuck in that makes them not approved, right? Not just listen to the news. Well, it wasn't approved again, and it was the Republican-controlled Senate. Right now, we should be fighting for what will help us with this crisis, not for political crap. So let's take a look at how the markets responded. So now you know ultra high net worth individuals were already moving. This market was an incredible high. Very great. All markets will adjust. But let's look at what happened during swine flu. That's probably one of the best indicators for you to look at. This is swine flu. This is 2009, 2010. The green arrow is March 17th, 2009. That's when the virus hit the market. When I say the virus hit the market, that's when everybody kind of knew about it then. Think about that, folks. It's 11 years ago in social media terms. There are a lot of things you didn't have in social media 11 years ago, right? And I use this one because if you look at that window before the big use of Instagrams and Twitters and some of this other stuff really caught on, and before phones really just took off with smartphones, right? Look at how the markets responded to the swine flu, right? Yeah, we took a hit. March 17th, we took a hit. You can see the market, but then it started to climb. And then the WHO raised it to pandemic level phase 6. Well, you can see the decline, right? And then the vaccine trials begin, just kind of like the same mirror we're going in. And then in October, it peaked, October 24th, it peaked in America. Well, you see the dip. There's the dip, right? And here it is. What you need to look at this chart is, and why I use this chart in particular, is I think this is probably the best snapshot of what's going on really. Now, number one, this pandemic is a problem. Coronavirus is a problem. But if you look at this chart, before our entire world was consumed with social media all damn day, before we had some of these platforms everywhere, right? Everywhere. It could actually be a pandemic and we could still be in a growth market. We could handle it. I think a lot of this is social alarmism, right? We've become a weakened society. We've become a snowflake society. We've become a society that doesn't even know how to change a car tire or what to do in an emergency. We've become a society that sees somebody getting their ass kicked on the street by thugs, but we stand there and we take out our phone and film it because we're worried more about the freaking social cred because we got it on video than doing what's right. So this social upside down that has occurred, I think, has hurt us in many ways. Markets flex all the time. Let's go back and look at this through time as I begin to wrap up here. Let's look at the market flex in here. Here you go. Okay, now what this is, and this is why you need to know this. This is 1918, January 1918 through December, and just the beginning of 1919. You've heard about this before, and this was the Spanish flu. Racism, racism. No, it's because that's what it got named. And unfortunately, yeah, you know, it killed maybe as many as 30 million, maybe as many as 50 million, 1.7% of the world's population. Think of it in terms of communication, though. The world didn't have the ability to communicate. We were lucky for telegraph then, to any extent, right? But look at the markets. What I'm showing you is the market. The one that you see is the faint line in the front. See this faint line in the front? That is the infection rate. And I did the layover the best I could. This is when the infection hit. And you see when we had a spike in infections, the market dropped. Then it came back down, the market started to rise. Then everybody wanted to make sure it held, and it held. Then infections, at just about the same time, the market started to grow. Well, we had the intake, and there were three waves of this, just so you know, it happened in three distinct waves where it went, it came, it went, it came, and then it was over. And so you see on this great spike right here of infection rate, of course, the market responded. Look, boom, look at that steep drop, and then it stayed minor. And then the market was more conservative. See, compared to this one, the growth went up even though it was still growing. But if you look over here, right, the market held back to make sure that the markets would grow. Then it went back up, it tapered back a little, and then as the actual response happened, they knew they had it under control, boom, the markets came roaring back. We've been here before. We've been here before. The markets have told us what's going on. But now what's happened is, yeah, we've got safety measures to protect us against this. So I got three more slides and we're ready to go. Take a look at this last one on 9/11. I want to show you what was the net effect of 9/11 a few months after the market. Here is year end post 9/11, right? So yeah, we saw 9/11 take a huge dive. That's the red arrow. Boom, right? The Dow dropped 14%. But as soon as our country started to recover, get back on track, and we knew what the hell happened, what was going on, and who did it, what happened to the market? What happened to the market? Right? The market took back off. This is what you need to understand. The market took back off. Now, the saying is that I'm going to give you is this too shall pass when it comes to the financial part. This too shall pass. You will see maybe our government lightening some of this up. You'll be able to go back to work maybe quicker than you thought. But let me show you how it is really over time. This too shall pass. Here is from 09 all the way through every one of these epidemics to now. Every little red dot is a crisis. And it doesn't matter if it was General Motors and Chrysler getting a filing for bankruptcy, or the BP oil spill, or the flash crash, or the gold peaks, or the S&P downgrades to USA debt, or the most powerful earthquake ever to hit mankind, or the government shutdown, right? Or Cyprus, and it goes completely nuts, right? The Ebola virus, all this other stuff. Look at it, folks. The global stock market, remember that? Global stock market 2015? The Chinese stocks fell 45%. It affected all of us. This is what shows you we're all in this together as a world, right? But even with government shutdowns, even with big markets crashing, we were pulling its IPO, all this other stuff, trade war was not too long ago. The markets rebound. It's what markets do. It's what investors do. And if there's profit to be made, they're going to come back in. It is going to go down, right? But what happens in investing is some people realize it's going to go down, hang on, and other people go, oh my God, I'm going to lose. They actually show statistically the people that bail lose more, right, than the people that stayed and didn't experience it. But it's all up to your own flavor. Here's my last slide of the evening I want to share with you, that I just want to remind you, here's what you need to know. This is how it is, right? They're basically saying coronaviruses are zoonotic. That basically means they came from animals, right? They're transmitted between animals and people. And they're basically spread by coughing and sneezing. We've known about coronaviruses since the 1960s, folks. This is just another version of another one. Coughing and sneezing, close personal contact such as touching or shaking hands, touching an object or a surface with the virus on it, and then touching your mouth, nose, and eyes before washing your hands, and fecal contamination. Signs of coronavirus are fever and cough, shortness of breath, and gastrointestinal problems. Some unique things on the shortness of breath. Evidently, from what I understand, this particular coronavirus, the mucus that will form in your lungs is much heavier. So it's not just maybe having a cough or whatever. Your lungs basically start to get heavy. They feel heavy, and that's part of the crisis with the respirators. But that's it, folks. Right? They're trying new things like this one. You're right. Hydroxychloroquine, right? And erythromycin. They're trying, right? And they're scrambling fast. We're going to learn fast. Remember, I told you this is the best time in the world to experience an epidemic because it's when we're the smartest and we're the most connected. But this is it, folks. I just wanted to give you that. We've been here before. We've been here when it comes to the markets before. So the markets have experienced this too. History shows us that with pandemics, you already know you're a survivor. Now you know when it comes to the financial markets, whether you were an investor or not, you too are a survivor in that. The lesson of the story is we've been here, we've done this. Don't get too alarmed. Follow the rules. But most important, take care of your young ones and your kids. Ease their fears. Let them know all societies go through this. And we learn because of it. We become better because of it, right? You may hate taking off your shoes when you go to the damn airport. And you may think it's the stupidest rule of ever, but when you remember the one guy tried to blow up the plane and the bomb was in the bottom of the sole of the shoe, there's a reason for it. And it changed the system. Yes, it was a little uncomfortable, but it made us safer. We will all come out of this better. The markets will rebound. We will get back to normal. And I think it's going to be sooner than later. You're going to see a spike. It's going to happen. You're going to see a spike in the fatalities of this. It's the natural course. Wash your hands, stay inside. Don't go out for any reason, right? Stay at home, read a book, watch fantastic broadcasts like this. I'll start putting out my podcast again soon. I stopped doing it about 2 years ago, even though I had 26 million plays and stuff. I just kind of got fed up with doing the history stuff, but I've decided in the wake of this in education, I probably need to come back to it. So I'm going to start up my podcast so you can listen and go back with you. So I'll start from 0 again. We'll see if we can get it back up to 26 million plays again. Anyway, folks, take care. Thanks for joining me. And as things become relevant or things I can share with you about what's going on, I want to share with you, keep you informed, because information is key and history is the best indicator of what's going to happen and how we should respond to this. Take care. Love you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.